Let's get the week kicked off with a bang and keep the recruiting momentum going.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie 5.
So we're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie 5, and we are ready to get after it. It's been like, 6 days since a commitment? Man, shut the program down. Auburn's been on a tear lately. That's not been a secret, and maybe keep the momentum going today. We're going to talk about a person that could potentially be on commit watch today. Just look at the history of the offensive line as of late and just how much we've struggled, and the attention to detail there is very, very encouraging for the future moving forward. And then, man, how big is this class going to be? You know, we were talking about potentially being a smaller class, 15 or 16 guys earlier in the spring. And now, as you've had your visits and you're seeing all the potential momentum, positive momentum that you have with a lot of different targets, how big could this thing get? We'll talk about all that today. Let's jump right in. Auburn could be on commit watch today. You saw the bat signal go out last night and weren't really sure about a time frame, but it does feel like it could happen today and become official. And that's Reed Ramsire from Orlando, Florida, the First Academy interior offensive lineman. Again, 4-star guy in the Rivals industry average, pretty much a 4-star across the board. I think he's the number 306 player in the country, number 20 player at his position. I don't want to say this has come out of nowhere, like really fast, because he's been to Auburn 3 times. But again, you remember that graphic where it was Auburn and Texas, and you almost felt like it was just formality is not the right word I'm going for. It was just like a ceremonial top 2 because there just wasn't a lot of positive momentum around Auburn. He cancels a visit to, I believe, Clemson, moves his Auburn visit up, comes in this past weekend. And then last night, we talked about it on the live show, it kind of broke just before we hit record that he canceled his Texas visit. So he was going to visit Auburn this past weekend and then turn around and go to Texas this upcoming weekend and then make a decision shortly thereafter. But I guess Auburn may have potentially hit it out of the park. Golesh knocked it out of the park with him. He canceled his visit. So that's all signs point to this kid being a part of this Auburn class. I wonder what it was. Was it Botanic for dinner, Heyday for lunch? What was it that really put him over the edge? I tell you what, if you want to close someone, you take them to Botanic. If you've never been, it's pretty fantastic. And obviously that's the go-to spot to take these top-rated guys. So Botanic, send the check. Again, I mentioned he's from Orlando, Florida. You wonder if there was maybe a relationship there, at least a cordial relationship when they were at South Florida. I know Tampa and Orlando are not necessarily like right there super close together, but you know that staff, when you go into a school like that, like South Florida, you're going to try to really work that radius. So I'm sure this guy was on their radar when they were there. And that's how you have to recruit. You got to recruit young. You can't just go only recruit seniors and upcoming seniors. You got to know these guys well before they actually get there. So not exactly sure when the commitment goes, but it feels like it's going to go at least some point today. If you add him to the class, I looked at the rankings. Again, he's a pretty high 4-star guy. It should take you up maybe one spot. I think you go from 14th to 13th for at least the time being. The rivals industry average, we've talked about how that one's more progressive. In other words, it doesn't, numbers don't matter right now. It's really more of a growing formula. So like as the recruiting season nears the end, it'll add more and more teams to the formula. I think now it's taking your top 12, which Auburn's got 14. This would be 15. So it's going to take the top 12 out of those 15 to give you the grade, and that would get Auburn up to the 13th spot right now. And again, you're not done. You got a lot of work to do, and maybe you could have a couple more this week. But offensive line is the focus. Now you've got potentially your fourth guy added to this offensive line that's we're already excited about. You already had your bookend, your franchise left tackle. I think you love your evaluation and you love the get of Jalen Moore, another one of your interior guys. You add Reed right beside him. And then, obviously you got Rance as well that could potentially grow into a really, really good prospect, had a good offer list as well. So I tell you what, man, coming in, and especially with Auburn's offensive line history, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, coming in and making offensive line the focus, I think – let me back up really quick. So offensive line recruiting in general doesn't get the love at most places that I feel like it does at Auburn. And it's because of just the sheer disregard of building that room through high school the past, gosh, when's the last time you're like, man, I tell you what, we are recruiting the offensive line really, really well. We're stacking it up, tackles, interior guys. When's the last time you can really remember that? There was a class under Gus Malzahn, I remember, where we added it felt like we had maybe 6 guys, and they're all pretty highly rated. I can't remember exactly which year. It was the same. It was the year that you had Avery Young in it, and I remember that was a big get. But that was the last one, and then it just has been overlooked. It's been piecemealed, patchwork since. So this group right here, that's a great foundation to start with. And I'll be honest, man, I think 2 or 3 of these guys can play early. Shoot, maybe all of them. I think Rance probably needs the most work, most development. But there's a pathway I think the other 3 that they could play almost maybe their second year. And how much of a home run would that feel like if you have at least 2 to 3 years with multiple guys in your same system playing together? I think it could be invaluable. You got to do it this year, then you got to do it the next year, then you got to do it the next year. It's got to be a focus. That's what championship teams do. They continue to rebuild every single year. They continue to add every single year on that offensive line. It seems like elementary school stuff. It seems like stuff that is so obvious, but Auburn has just been snake bit there, I guess. I mean, I can remember recruitments like Martez Ivy, where it's we're going to get him. We got Chandler Cox from his teammate. You're going to get Martez Ivy, and you don't get him. Then you just don't take an offensive tackle. Then you have how many years you go in a row without taking an offensive tackle. I remember when Harsin came in, you celebrated flipping a kid from Tennessee as the first offensive tackle that you signed in multiple years. It's just good that Golesh is coming here and putting the emphasis on it right away. So everybody buckle up. Let's have fun. Let's make sure that we show Reed some love when that announcement comes through. If it comes through, it should come through. And let's celebrate it. It's big time, guys. Big, big time. We're going to talk about offensive line history and why this is such a big deal here in just a second. But before we do that, let's give a shout out to the PTAC. Let's beat the heat, guys. Precision Tune Auto Care in Opelika at the corner of Veterans and Pepperell Parkway. It's getting hot outside. Get that free AC performance evaluation, free system pressure test, free vent temperature analysis. And then if they find anything wrong, they'll give you $50 off any repairs over $300. And if I tell you what, hey, if you go in there, it's 30 minutes. Hey, let's say you're going in and getting your oil changed. Say, hey, go ahead and do that AC evaluation. Let's go ahead and knock that out. I don't know. Who knows? You may find something that needs to be fixed. If it's perfect, they're going to just say, hey, you don't need anything. You don't need anything. You're running perfect. And that feels good to know that I can speak from experience. That feels good to know that you're not going to go drop your car off and they're going to find something for you to spend money on. They're now open at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. Drop your car off between 7 and 9 and get a $50 oil change. Can't beat that deal anywhere. It's Precision Tune Auto Care. And then don't forget to go to buyauburn.com. Be who you say you are. Do business with Auburn people. Auburn business owners can list your business for less than $1 a day. And you got a chance to do a Auburn Business Spotlight podcast as well. Hit me up, and I'll give you all the details on that. And Auburn people, hey, if you're going to start shopping, start with buyauburn.com. We'll be back right after this. When is the last offensive line that you can just say, you know what? They were solid. The last offensive line, when you just felt good, you were going to push people around. It wasn't going to be a sack fest. If it got in third and beyond 5 yards and it was an obvious passing down, you didn't feel like it was going to be a disaster. Can you think of the last time that you felt that way? There were times in 2017 was probably the most recent where you're like, you know what? They were pretty good. And even though that Clemson game that year, they gave up 11 sacks, and we were like, holy cow, here we go again. It's never really felt like run blocking has been an issue. I know Auburn's got a moniker for a running school, and that's, kind of a pet peeve of mine because, is it just like in the water, or is it just, what is it that just makes Auburn only be able to run the ball and you can't throw the ball? I don't really understand that. But, yeah, as far as having a good, balanced offensive line on both sides, it's really hard to think of the last one where you're just like, man, those guys were awesome. They were awesome. 2013 was a pretty good not a pretty good. They were really good. But you know what? We ran the ball like crazy. We ran that read option. We just blew people off the ball. The 2000s, there was some really good offensive line on both sides of the ball. As a matter of fact, from about 2003 to about 2007, you probably had some of the best offensive lines. Some of the best offensive lines you've had. I'm sure you could go into the 80s, but when you're just talking about particularly, think about that 2004 offensive line, how balanced they were. You could run the ball, you could throw the ball. 2005, 2006, you could do both. It's just Auburn has really struggled as of late on being able to, put an offensive line out there that can knock you off the ball when everybody knows you're going to run the ball, and they can block you when everybody knows you're going to pass. And it feels like maybe potentially you've leaned a little bit too much on the transfer portal. I know you can get really good players, and there's framework out there, models of success about being able to go grab guys out of the portal and plug them in, and it works. But at the end of the day, I think if you look at some of the more consistent playoff teams, a lot of those guys on the offensive line are homegrown, and I put homegrown in quotation marks. Like, they're guys that they bring in, they keep them in their system, they learn their system. and they develop. Think about this. Think about when you're constantly bringing in new guys. The communication piece, everybody's learning something new every time they go to a new spot. So I think what the last staff struggled with was we're constantly bringing in these new guys. We got to dumb down, the messaging, not the messaging. We got to dumb down the system a little bit to make it easier because, man, you got to win now. If you bring in guys, you got to win now. It's not like you bring in guys and then you from the portal and then you have, 2 or 3 years of developing them learning your system, learning all the checks, learning all the everything. Let's dumb it down. And I think you saw, who was it? Was it Aaron Murray who was really calling out Auburn for I guess it was the slide protections they were using, which basically just makes things, it's like a really simplified version of, where to pick up the pressure from. And teams had figured out how to exploit that, and it just made things really, really tough. When you have a guy that, I tell you what, if you have a guy that's just in your system for 2 years, that second year, how much more can they absorb? How much more can they be taught that second year than just that one period of time, which I guess you got, if they enroll in December, you got spring and you got summer before you go. How much better and how much more can you develop as a unit if you're here for, that extra year? That's why high school recruiting on the offensive line in particular is still so very important. It's so important to get these guys. It's so important to get them in and shut down their visits. So it's like, hey, they're locked in and we can sort of pencil them into our plans for 2027 and beyond. It's been a while since Auburn has been in that scenario as far as the offensive line goes. So again, we're just talking about right now, like these guys haven't gotten here yet. You got to start planning for next year too. So I'm not saying the offensive line's fixed. I'm not saying that all the problems are solved. I'm not saying that it's a lock that these offensive lines are now about to be as good as the offensive line in the 2000s. I'm just saying that it feels like this staff is doing the things you're supposed to do. How about that? On the offensive line that usually yield to better results. So better results, especially on the offensive line, which in turn should lead to better results, as on the offense as a whole. So I don't know. I like the trajectory we're going on right now. Let's see if they can keep it rolling and keep these guys locked in. You get these 4 in, that's a pretty dang good class. And then could you add anyone else? You had a big visitor this past weekend. I don't know who else is a realistic option at this point in time. And, there may be some guys materialize late. We'll see. Let's talk about class size, because before spring, we didn't make up the 15 number. Like we didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, Auburn's only going to take about 15 to 16 guys. Like that was the plan. And before spring. And I think what you're seeing is the staff's learning that, hey, we have way more momentum with guys from a number standpoint than maybe we thought of going into this thing. I mean, we just got here in December. We're meeting a lot of these guys for the very first time. Maybe we'll focus on a smaller class, and then after spring, hey, things we could actually go 20 plus. We may go 25. Like we could get these guys. Learning on the fly and adjusting has been very, very impressive with the staff, particularly that recruiting organization off the field and, obviously the on the field coaches. And I've talked about the potential that, losing Will Minsell allows you to do a lot more things. But yeah, now I'm looking at the numbers and looking at potential guys on the commit list, and I could easily see Auburn getting to 24. When you start rattling off the names, I could easily see Auburn getting to 24 guys if they want to go that high. I mean, just this week, you're talking so if Reed pops today like we think he is, that's 15. Okay? You talk about James Pace and Ryan Jackson, now you're at 17. You talk about Kenyer Crum, the safety, now you're at 18. You still want to get Carlos Ramsey in the boat. Carlos May, he's from Ramsey High School. Now you're at 19. And you just kind of keep going, and there's multiple guys still on the list where you're like, man, you know what? Auburn could be in that 20. They could be in the talk to have a class as big as 24. Probably, I would imagine it's impossible to say, but there's been like a track record, even though it's another staff, like all these dudes may not all be here come signing day in December. But again, this is a whole new staff, so that it may be different. You can't really compare what will happen this year to what's happened in the past, but the statistics will show you're probably going to lose, one or two maybe from this class. But yeah, the ability to pivot, and now there's so much momentum. There's going to be another wide receiver. Could it be Tay Walden? Could it be someone else? I mean, right now we're already talking about guys, into the 20s as far as total commits. So this thing could be a lot bigger than initially expected. And kudos to the staff from, you can have an idea of something and sort of be hard-headed and just say, no, we're going to stick to the plan. But once you gather more information and you're like, man, I'll tell you what, we may need to take advantage of this. And I tell you what, these kids are good. These kids are way better than we thought. Let's get them now. Let's get them in the system. Let's start building the culture around them, get them used to it, and we'll have some dudes all bought in, in the next 2 or 3 years. Guys that we brought in, that we've had from the beginning. I like it. I just love their flexibility. I love their ability to pivot. Don't let decommitments sink them. They just move on to the next guy very systematically and just get it done. Probably going to be a heavy bunch of recruiting over the next several weeks, just because that's what's happening right now. It's a big recruiting weekend. It's a big recruiting era of the year, part of the year, not necessarily too much football stuff to talk about. Guys, I really appreciate you listening. Enjoyed it over the weekend, and we're going to have some fun this week as well. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.